A very good evening to one and all. I'd like to welcome you all to this event that is Medic Hacks. And today we'll be talking about everything you need to know to crack USMLE Step 1. For the sake of introduction, I'm Onam Verma and I'm a student of 3rd Prof at GMCH Chandigarh. I've been associated with AMSA for the past 1 year. I joined as a member back in May 2020, and I became the college head of GMCH AMSA in November 2020. So, yeah, a little about how this event came to be. Um, when I was organizing a few events in my own college, I sensed a lot of confusion on part of students about what USMLE Step 1 was and how one should start preparing for it. And I feel that that was because there was simply a dearth of opportunities for these students to interact with their seniors at college, given that everything had shifted to the online mode. And I look back to my own first and second prof, where I found it pretty easy given that we had several platforms to interact with our seniors, and it was, I feel, way more comfortable for us. So yeah, that is how I came to think about having such an event. And with the help of Dr. Avi, who's the VOCI AMSA, who's with us right now, and Mansimar, who's the North Zone head of AMSA, we were able to make a college level event, a national level event, and we're doing it on Zoom, and it's also being aired on YouTube, and it's going to be there for people who want to review the event or want to look up the sources again. So yeah, I'd like to thank Dr. Avi and Mansimar for making this possible. Without further ado, I'd like to also introduce our speakers for today. We have Keshav with us, who is a student of third prof. And we have Dr. Anmol, who is interning at GMCH right now, both of whom have excelled at their step one. Keshav gave his step one in the third prof and he got an inspirational score of 255. And Anmol sir gave his step after his final prof and got a score of 258. So yeah, without further ado, let me just switch to the next slide. Yes. So the United States medical licensing examination essentially has or had three steps. The first step, the second step, and the third step. The second step essentially further had two steps. The step one, that was the step 2 CK, and the step 2 CS. Now there have been very monumental changes that have been brought about in these steps in the past 1.5 years, which include the step one now not being a 3-digit scoring system and being a pass fail system from the 22nd of January 2022. And the fact that step 2 CS has been scraped out, right? But what I'd like to do is we'd like to confine this discussion and this seminar to the resources and to the discussion that is pertaining to the step one USMLEs, that we can have a more in-depth discussion about the same, and given that our speakers have given their step one only, so I think it will be very important and very sensible to stick to the questions and to the resources for step one USMLE. Also, if you have any questions, feel free to use the chat box or the Q&A box, and we'd like you to hold on to your questions for the Q&A round that we will have at the end of this session. So I'll just go into how this event will be the format of the event. I'll first be presenting the subject-wise resources that you can follow. Then we'll be looking at the first aid, and then we'll be having some insight from our speakers on how they prepared for their step. And yeah, so we'll jump into it on that note. So my aim here, as I had written in the introductory message to this workshop or this event, was the fact that this is for everybody, students in the first, second, and the third prof, and some of who are thinking about giving the step right now as well. So I feel the step one resources that we use can be used in two ways. They can be used as review sources for people who've already gone through with their first and their second prof. You can use it as review resources to review the whole syllabus that you're already done with, right? And the second use of these resources could be as supplementary resources. You could use these resources supplementing the standard textbooks that you will be using to actually study these subjects for the first time, which you will be doing in your first and your second prof, right? So having made that clear, we'll be jumping into the first prof subjects and the resources that we'll be using for them. For anatomy, the resources that most people end up using include the high yield books. So the high yield books come for three parts of anatomy. One is gross anatomy, the other is neuroanatomy, and then embryology. And then we have shelf notes of anatomy, which are also used by a couple of people. Now, as to how anatomy is studied from the perspective of the step one, we'll be discussing a little more about that in conversation with our speakers, because a lot of people have a lot of different approaches to anatomy. So I will be talking about that a little later in conversation with our speakers. Coming to biochemistry, I think Kaplan is one of the most high yield resources out there for biochemistry. Also, whenever you're doing whenever you're using these resources, such as you're using Kaplan videos, so you don't just watch those videos. You use those videos with notes, and then you sort of annotate those notes when you watch those videos. And yeah, I mean, because you have to go through these notes again and again, so that you repeat, so that you revise and you sort of strengthen those core concepts and those high yield facts. So you don't simply use the videos alone for most of these resources. You use it with the notes, so that you have the notes and you are acquainted with the notes and you can revise them once again, right? Coming to physio, again, for biochemistry, the first prof students can use standard textbooks, like Harper and Lippincott, but I've had seniors who've studied from basic textbooks from Indian authors, and who've done jolly well on their step as well. So yeah, I mean, we'll be talking more about that as well with our speakers. Coming to physiology, I feel BRS Review Physiology is a very good book for physiology. A little pointer here, BRS books for physiology come in two varieties. I remember Keshav had used the wrong book, and he's pretty disturbed because the other book is like a 500-page thick book, which is a complete textbook of BRS. So I suggest you buy this little textbook of BRS, and that is, yeah, BRS Physiology Review, and that's it. Yeah. For students who's still in the first prof and who have a lot of time on their hands, you can also use Najib. A, a lot of us use Najib, and it is an excellent resource for physiology. It has most of the systems there, and it's especially very high yield for cardiology and for neurology and neuroanatomy. So yeah, you could look into that. And then, goes without saying, you have the standard textbooks of Guyton and Ganong. Yeah, we'll go to the second prof subjects now. The second prof subjects, we have microbiology, pathology, and pharmacology. So for those of you in your first prof, to give you a little perspective, USMLE step one is only a test of essentially your first and your second prof subjects. And that is why we're sort of laying more emphasis on these two profs here, right? So you have microbiology, in which sketchy videos and notes are some of the most high yield resources we have out there right now. You have Nagova for a rapid review, a few people use it. And there's this book called Microbiology Made Ridiculously Simple. This is also a book that a lot of people use, although sketchy videos and notes are one of the most high yield resources. Sketchy video and notes, they basically, the whole concept of sketchy videos and notes comes to be from the fact that uh, the person who's actually made them, he has given the step, and he sort of knows what questions are asked, so he's come from the result of what those questions are, and then he's come up with the concept of making sketchy. And that is why he has one of the most and that is what makes sketchy one of the most high yield resources out there, essentially. Then we have pathology. Pathology, Pathoma is the resource that you're going to use for pathology. Again, goes without saying, you'll have the videos, you'll have the notes. I still have videos that I watched in my second prof, and like, it actually helps you get through your profs as well. Pathoma, it's a real savior. And you annotate those notes, and then you revise those notes later. So your notes are going to be with you for a very long time. So make sure that you annotate them well, and yeah, I mean, they should be presentable so that you can look them up whenever you want to. Even when you're starting medicine, you'll go back to those concepts. You can just look up your notes. You don't have to search your textbooks again. So that's the importance of notes, I guess. Then we have a book called Golian, right? So Golian is a pretty detailed book for somebody who's in their third prof. It will just it's basically a clinical view at pathology. And it a lot of people in their final prof use Golian for a few subjects like HIMAT, because it is a very detailed book. It will not only give you the concepts of pathology but the concepts of medicine related to pathology. So now the use of Golian is also debated whether or not it is essential. But for the past 2 to 3 years, I've seen that the people who've given their step in their third prof ended up reading Golian to some extent, although they end up saying that it did not help them in the step as much. But they have read it, and it sort of makes their life easier when they're solving clinical vignettes, which we'll be talking about later. Then we have pharmacology. Kaplan is one of the most high yield resources we have out there for Kaplan, for pharmacology. And again, you do the notes and the videos together. Sketchy pharmacology is also used by a few people. Sketchy pharmacology is also used by a few people, especially for the antibiotics part. We'll be talking about that later again, right? So we've come to an end of the resources that we could have used that we can use to review our first and our second prof subjects. Moving ahead, so basically, there's a lot of material given in first aid, like in the index part and in the annexures at the end. So I'd suggest you go through all of that. That will also give you a lot of insight on as to how to prepare for the step. Coming to the index of the step, so it is basically divided into general principles, and here we have the high yield organ systems. So we've already discussed how we'll go about biochemistry, microbiology, pathology, and pharmacology. Now, coming to two more subjects here, which are given separately, which is immunology. So, for immunology, we'll be doing again the videos and notes of Kaplan. And public health sciences basically will include biostatistics, which is also given in Kaplan. And yeah, I think there are 2 4-hour videos in the latest Kaplan videos, which you can do with the notes. And it is actually it is given very well in the first aid itself. So yeah, I think we've covered the general principles, the high yield general principles. Coming to the high yield organ systems. So we have discussed what we've had to do in the first and second prof sections. Now, any organ system is basically a coming together of whatever you've read before, of all the first prof subjects and second prof subjects pertaining to that organ system, right? So you'll have the physiology, the pharmacology, the pathology related to that organ system, the embryology. It is a coming together of sorts of all the first and second prof concepts related to that organ system. However, from what I've heard, and what I've heard over time, the cardiovascular system and the CNS are basically the cobblestones, I'd say, of the step, because they involve concepts of medicine. And we'll be talking more about these with our speakers as well, as to how they tackled this. And yeah, I mean, in the cardiovascular system, ECG is a place where people feel stuck, which I feel is given very well in Najib. And Golian does give a perspective on on the medicine part of CVS. So that for neurology and special senses, neuroanatomy, you have to have a very strong concept of neuroanatomy, which you can either get from Kaplan neuroanatomy, which is a lot more simpler than high yield neuroanatomy, although people do both or people do one. And it's just a common perception that Kaplan neuroanatomy is much easier than high yield neuroanatomy, and yields the same result on your step 1 exam, right? Then you have psychiatry. The best resource out there for psychiatry, I believe, is the Paul Bolan videos, YouTube videos that you have. They're like, I think 14 videos, and you could just look up the internet for them on YouTube, and you could make the notes and then supplement it with first aid. So you could just, the psychiatry part, you could do the Paul Bolan videos alongside your first aid. Also, I believe, like, now that I've done Paul Bolan to some extent, and I've done Amboss psychiatry as well. I feel Amboss psychiatry is a little better than Paul Bolan, given that it saves time. You don't have to make the notes, and it is exactly given in a way that like it is given in the first aid. The format is very similar. The criterias are way too similar, so it is very easy to interpret it when you're reading the when you're reading first aid of psychiatry after you've done Amboss. So yeah, that's that. Now we'll be talking about a few other resources that have not individually mentioned in the first and the second prof subjects that we could have used. Boards and beyond. Anmol sir, it comes. We'll be talking more about this with Anmol sir. Amboss, I feel, is a very good resource. The library of Amboss is very high yield, although it comes highly suggested for step 2. But given the changes in curriculum that have come up in the batches of 2K19 onwards, I feel Amboss is a very good resource that one can look into. The various subscriptions, the subscriptions involving just the 1 year library course of Amboss is a lot more cheaper than the one that comes with the Q banks. So that is something that you can look into. Amboss also has, and this is basically the symbol for Anki. Anki is a software for spaced repetition where you can make your flashcards, and you can. It is a good tool to revise again. And then there's Osmosis. Osmosis videos are also, some of them are available on YouTube, and some of them have limited access. But then again, Amboss has tie-ups with both Osmosis and Anki. So if you have Amboss, you have access to Osmosis as well, which I feel is a good tool and has been useful to me as well. As far as Anki is concerned, you can go up and look it up on YouTube, and there are way too many videos explaining how to use Anki. And yeah, spaced repetition has proven to be a very useful process for retaining the vast amount of medical knowledge that we have in our curriculum. Coming to the most important part of our discussion, which is the Q banks. Now we have these the four main Q banks that people use while preparing for their steps: the USMLE RX, the UWorld, the Kaplan USMLE Step 1 Q bank, or Amboss. But the one that you have to use and is pertinent is UWorld. You can't do without UWorld, and as to how we'll be using UWorld is something we'll be speaking with Anmol sir and Keshav. So UWorld is something that you can supplement with Kaplan or Amboss or USMLE RX question banks while you're doing the system-wise studies. And Amboss question banks are supposed to be a lot more tougher than the questions that appear on your step 1. Uh, and they come again highly suggested for step 2 as well. But yeah, UWorld is the main resource that we'll be focusing on, and UWorld can be used as a study tool, and it can be used as a question bank, right? And we'll be speaking about this a little more with Dr. Anmol. So yeah, I think with this we've come to an end with the basic resources that we could have talked about. We'll now be talking to our speakers, Keshav and Dr. Anmol. And
Hi, Anu.
the first,
Hi, am I audible, Onam?
yeah, yes, sir. Yes.
How are you? So I'd just like to say a few things before we give it to these exceptional people we have here, if that's okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Perfect. So good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I am so glad to see all of you after a so long time of pretty much heavy exam season and Corona season at the same time. First, I'm super impressed, Onam. You've done a great research. You've so beautifully compiled all the work for. I think most of us didn't know. I didn't know about the minute resources that you've talked about and the way that you've put it forward for all of them. So I want to tell that I am as much a listener here who is going to absorb all the great stuff that Onam and both the speakers are gonna share. And one big reason that I'm looking, there are four big reasons basically. I think I'm looking forward to this session, and I want all of you to absorb as much from this, because Onam has worked a lot. The speakers I can give you in writing are one of the best people that you will hear from about USMLE. The first thing I would want to say is that we might have amazing teachers around to guide us through things, but when it comes to an exam, there's no better person who can tell you about it than someone who's just given it. And both Anmol and Keshav are from different profs, so you have the best of both worlds. I would want you guys to just absorb and ask as much as you can from them, because they're like an ocean of knowledge when it comes to USMLE, undoubtedly. The second thing I want to say is a lot of people here might not be even very sure they want to pursue USMLE. It's very natural for people to be confused between NEET and PLAB and USMLE. But one good thing that's happening at this time is all the exams, including NEET next, are becoming concept oriented. So it's pretty high yield for you to understand the conversations and discussions that are happening here. So focus on the concepts, and I'm pretty sure that it's going to help you whatever you ultimately choose. The third thing is that I'm not just excited today because this is an amazing session. And Anmol, besides being like an amazing person at USMLE and being someone who loves to study and help people around, he's a great friend whom I've known since my time at AIMS Jodhpur. And one thing that I want to tell, take the liberty for telling, because I understand he operates in a very beautiful way that I very much appreciate, that it's not just about studying, it's about studying right, the right way, which is super important when it comes to USMLE especially. So both of them are going to beautifully help you with that. And just to wrap it up, I have four recommendations for all of us here, that please, I'm so glad to have you all here, but ask questions, because you are here for yourself. Ask whatever you have in your head. There's no reason that you should shy away, because you are your own competition. Everyone has their own problems, so it's best you ask your questions. The second thing, even if you don't want to ask questions, listen to things very carefully, because it's the same doubts that most people are going to have, right? And thirdly, to help you listen very carefully, I would actually advise most people to turn on their videos, because then you are much more into the session and everyone feels much more relaxed. It's not like talking to no one in front of you. And not taking much time, congratulations to everyone who's here, and especially to Keshav and Anmol for such amazing scores. And over to you, Onam, for such a great job. Congratulations.
Thank you, Abhi. Okay, so I think without further ado, we'll be going to our speakers. The first question that I'd like you to answer is I'd just like you to share your journey when you decided to give the step and how you went about it, when you took the date for your step, and just share a general timeline. Dr. Anmol, if we could start with you.
Hello, hi, am I audible?
Yes, sir.
First of all, thank you, Onam, for this wonderful review that you've done of the resources, and thank you, Avi, for the graceful introduction you gave. I'm honored. Okay, so I pretty much had known that I would give my steps somewhere in my medical school, but I hadn't decided on which year. So as time went by, I decided that I'll give it in my internship. So I knew from my seniors and from my friends that the preparation is going to take around like 8 to 9 months. It takes that much time to fully prepare well for this exam. So I started right away with my internship. First of all, like I was doing my duty side by side. Whenever I could get the time, I used to study. And I think I did my duties till June, from January till June, and I took 4 months off to focus on dedicated preparation for my step. Okay, I think like what Onam touched upon, the resources. See, what I discovered through my journey was like there are some must do resources, like you like have to do them, and if you don't do them you will be really sacrificing points on your exam. And there are some resources that work for you, and there are some resources that don't work for you. Okay, so let me explain. Like there are like I consider these three resources to be the most important. Like first of all, it's uworld, the question bank, and then it's first aid, and I would say sketchy micro. and Pathoma. Let's make it 4. So I think these 4 resources are the most important that everybody should go through in when they are preparing for their exam. The other resources, they are good that you have them, but they are not something that you must go through all. So what I mean is that if you go through every resource that was listed some minutes earlier, it is going to take you an entire year just to go through the resources. So it is not feasible to go through everything that you can see. More is not always better. That is the point I'm trying to come at. The thing is, you everyone will have a limited time to prepare for this exam, and so you need to use this time more efficiently. That is the main thing. So the thing is that so like if we come to like anatomy, the anatomy is a very debatable topic, how to do anatomy. Some people who are very comfortable in anatomy don't even read anatomy specifically, and some people like one of my very close friends actually read the entire Gray's Anatomy. Yes, he read the entire book for USMLE Step 1. So it is a very interesting to see how well grasp of a subject you actually have come at. So what you all can do is prepare. I think preparation for the USMLE can take 2 paths. Either you can do the classical way in which you go through subject by subject and you first do all the resources and then you start doing the questions. Or some people also like to follow a way like they straight away start with the questions. Am I audible?
Sir, I think we're losing your voice. BP
I know.
Smith. Uh,
Yeah, I think there's some internet connection issues. Just 1 second.
You seem good now, Anmol.
Okay. Okay, I'll continue. So yeah, I was saying that there are 2 ways to prepare for this exam. The first way is that you do the subjects one by one, and after that do the questions all together, and you use UWorld as a testing tool. The other way is that you learn from the questions itself, because see the resources, all of the that those you mentioned are very vast. Yes, they have all the high yield topics, but they also have so many things that are not so high yield. So to use your time most efficiently, some people start doing the questions first, and then they see that which topics they lack at and which topics they need to have a better understanding and which topics are more high yield, that you are seeing repetitive questions coming up. So you focus on them and you try to learn those topics from the best resource that you can find. So yeah, I think no way is better than the other. It's what works for you. I personally did the former one. I went through the resources subject by subject, and then I used UWorld as a testing tool to see how much that I retained and what more topics did I needed to focus on. So yeah, one thing I wanted to say about Golian. See, Pathoma will teach you everything about Patho that you need to know for the USMLE Step 1. But the thing about Golian is Golian gives a beautiful understanding of the medicinal concepts, or the pathology that is applied in medicine that we eventually come to know in our final years. See, I think Golian is a great resource for somebody who is in the third year or even the second year. But I feel as I did Golian after my final year, so it was a great read, but I didn't think that it was very high yield in my internship years. I think Golian is something that you can do in your second or third year, because it is a long book. It is like 700 or 800 pages, so it takes around 25 to 30 days at least to go through it once. That is like 1 month on one book. So I think you need to view how much time you are going to devote to your study, and how much time or resources taking. So yeah, any questions on it?
Uh, yeah, if you could just tell them a little more about how much time you spent on different systems, and if you went system wise, or if
Mhm.
you took the general principles first and then you went to your systematic study, and if you did the U World systemic part once and for all, or if you did it with the systems.
Yeah, so what I did was I went system wise. First, I started doing, I think I did pharmacology first. You can follow any order that you want, that you feel like it doesn't matter in the long run that in which order you do your subjects. So I went through subject by subject. For pharmacology, I'll briefly go over the resources that I used.
So your voice is cracking again. If you could just
Hello. Raise your
yes,
thumb.
yes.
Okay. So for pharmacology, what pathology I did pathoma and Golian. For for microbiology, I did micro, solely sketchy micro. So I did the Kaplan videos for immunology. For anatomy, what I did for anatomy was I looked at, see, I didn't think that I could read the entire grace for anatomy. So I looked at the clinical scenarios, the green boxes that you have in Grey's Anatomy. I went through those and I looked at the photos to just get a general idea of see, for anatomy you don't need to know the tiny details of which artery crosses from where or which nerve crosses from where. You need to have a general idea, because that is what they ask in the questions. They don't ask you each and every branch of any random artery in the body. So the thing is, for anatomy I went through the green boxes that you have in Grey's Anatomy. I went through those the clinical concepts, and I looked at the
sorry,
photos
what you
of history. I did Kaplan. I think Dr. Sam videos are exceptional. Hello, the connection is unstable, isn't it?
yeah. Or you could just, while you're at it, you could just type it in the chat box for our listeners as well, and that'll do the job. The resources that you're talking about while you're speaking, so that they know what you're talking in case the voice is breaking.
Yeah, for anatomy, I looked at the boxes and looked at the high yield photos that I considered to be important, because I didn't think that I had the time to go through the entire physiology. For physiology, I used BRS physiology book. I think it has some great concepts and everything you need to know about physiology will be in 7 to 10 days. It's not a big read. It's a small handy book that you can easily go through in 7 to 10 days. So I think that was quite a good resource to use. So yeah, first first I went through each of these resources, and I think I took around 6 months to go through each resources one by one, because I also did Golian and that took like entire month to do Golian. So after that I hadn't touched first aid as of now. So after doing my resources, I did a big revision to everything that I've just read, because first thing is, first aid is like 7 to 800 page book that covers everything. Yes, it's that vast. But the thing is, one cannot just straight away pick up first aid and start reading that, because it is very condensed. It's very, the topics, there are so many concepts in even 2 lines, and people say that each and every word of first aid has a meaning and it is important, and I tend to agree with that. That first aid has a lot of meaning, and it is very important. lot of great first is knowledge. But the thing is, if you say that appears very tempting that I'll just memorize the entire book, but that is not very practical. So what you need to do is you need to build very okay, the voice is breaking again. Is it better now?
Yes, sir, for now.
Okay. So where was I? So the thing with first aid is it is very tempting to say that I'll just memorize the entire book and I'll know everything, but that is not how it works. It's quite difficult to remember first aid. The information given is very condensed. So you need to have a basic understanding of all the concepts that they're talking about. So the way I broke down my preparation was the first half of it I used to build my concepts. That is like the most important thing that you can have when it comes to USMLE preparation. The stronger basic concepts that you have, the better you'll do. It's just the way how it works. Yes, memorization plays a part, and some things can't be understood. Some things must be just memorized the way it is. But majority of it is basic core concepts that the resources that you just that I went through and you listed elaborate beautifully. So that is the thing. Wherever you think that you are just memorizing it or you don't get it, don't skip over that fact that you found had some difficulty understanding it. You need to understand why this thing happens and if there is a reason. So try going through resources which you find more useful, not go through every resource. Okay. So yeah, first I went through all my resources to build concepts and then went through first aid once. And after going through first aid, I started doing UWorld questions. So UWorld I did was all questions random. And I think that is the best way to prepare for step one, because step one use UWorld as a great testing tool. Yeah. So personally, that is how I use UWorld. And yeah, I think going through first aid once took me 1 month, and going through UWorld took me 2 weeks. So that is how I use UWorld. And yeah, I think yeah, I think the internet connection is not good today. Anyhow, am I audible now, Onam? Okay. So I think I'll go over UWorld once more. I did UWorld random and timed. So there are multiple ways that you can do UWorld. You can do UWorld in tutor mode. You can do UWorld in random mode. All the subjects, all the systems, random questions of everything, or you can do it in timed or non-timed. So what I personally advise is doing UWorld timed and random, because that gives you the best case scenario to simulate USMLE every day. Because what tutor mode is, the tutor mode is that you do a question and the answer pops up immediately after you select an option. What what timed mode does is that you need to do a block of 40 questions or how many questions that you want to do, and you need to time it really well. So yeah, I think that was the way that it helped me the most. Internet क्यों-
We are able to hear you, sir.
हाँ. So yeah, over to you, Onam. Anything you want to know in particular?
Actually, Onam is having some technical difficulties.
Okay, okay.
So I think
Keshav, we can have a
Anmol, sir.
discussion about our yeah.
yeah. So when I was in second prof, so I decided to give the USMLE step 1. I was still not sure about giving step 1 or not. So basically, I did it just to have one of my options open for the future. So my exams got finished on 20th of December. I started my preparation on Jan 10th. And sir, I've already told you about the resources. So I went by the same method, just as sirs. I did the resources first, and then I did the first aid, and then the U-World. So what I did was I tried to make sure that I tried to annotate everything of each and every source on first aid. So that at the end of the day, when I have to go through first aid, I can go through all of the study material that I've gone through the whole 9 months. So in this way, my first aid was more of a complete book. Then it took almost 50 days to complete the first go through of first aid. It was a little bit lengthy process, and at the end of the day, you just got bored of first aid because you don't know what is important and what is not important. So then I started U-World. My initial target was to complete first one block each day, but I couldn't. I was able to do only 30 questions or 25 questions. So it took me almost 3 months to complete the U-World. But what I did was I started giving test papers at NBMEs and U-World assessment. I knew what was my score approaching and how I was progressing in my exam. And then what when I was done with 60% of U-World, I gave U-World as register for the exam. Yeah, sorry, I think my internet also crashed. Yeah, so that's when in August I went for the registration of the exam, and I got my U-World completed by the end of the August, and then one whole month I was doing U-World blocks, the questions that I had corrected earlier in the first round, and went through the NBME exams. Uh, Unlike other people of my college, I did a lot of NBME exams. I gave 9 NBME tests, and I don't know why people don't consider them high yield, but according to me, they are really high yield. A lot of questions on the actual exam, the test day, are similar to NBME. So you should not, ignore NBMEs, and especially the free 120 exam. That interface of that free 120 exam is identical to the test. So it is very much important that you go through the free 120 test day before your exam. And I feel one resource that have been missed today is the Dirty Medicine channel on YouTube. It is absolutely high yield. The videos in the Dirty Medicine have covered all the important concepts that students feel difficult to grasp, and especially the videos on ECG and murmurs is really good. I think Dirty Medicine helped me a lot to circumvent all the topics that uh, I I didn't feel the need to go through Golian. Although I went through the audio files of Golian, 10 audio files, which covered the general pathology, and they were really good. But I felt for the systemic pathology, first aid, U-World, and the videos on Dirty Medicine are more than enough. So the only thing which I think I lacked during the exam day was my behavioral science, that ethics questions. So I did the 100 cases, 100 ethical cases by Conrad Fisher, but the book is really old book. I think it's 2005 edition, so it is not up to date. So UWorld covers a lot of concepts, but after my exam date, 10 days after that, they have increased the ethical questions on the test day. So I would recommend going through a better resource for the ethical questions. And one thing I came to know during my preparation was boards and beyond. We don't use here as much, but it has started replacing the Kaplan and other Pathoma videos as really fast. It covers all the concepts systematically. So it first starts with anatomy, then embryology, anatomy, physiology, and it's really good. So if you lack at any particular concept, make sure you go through dirty medicine and or boards and beyond, or like Onam said, even osmosis. The main thing is you need to explore the material which is available on the internet. It is absolutely free. You can get it on Telegram, and it's really good, because at the end of the day, the time you spend on a particular topic will help you. And one particular advice I would give is that make sure you have a habit of sitting through 9 to 10 hours of regular study. So for that, I started doing 10 blocks every day, like from a month before my test. This is very much important, because if you are comfortable for sitting through eight blocks, then it really gets on the last blocks. So they need your full awareness. So make sure you go through all the tests and go through all the resources, whatever resources you find useful, but make sure you keep annotating them on your first aid, because we won't have time to go through every resource while doing revision. And make sure you do as many questions as you can, because questions are the real deal. UWorld, I did UWorld as a study tool. It's a really good study tool. It's the only tool that will help you increase your score. The more you do UWorld, the more you do questions, be it out of MBOS or USMLE RX, it will help you. So instead of going through resources again and again, go through questions. And for those who feel that it's not easier to give step one in third prof if you haven't done enough study in the first two profs, I don't think so. It should stop you from preparing, because what will happen if you not feel confident enough to give this test? You will definitely gain more knowledge. And like Anmol sir once said to me that you will at least study something for your final prof, because either way you have to study either medicine for the final prof or the pathology of the first and second prof. So it's better you go for the step one, you prepare for it, and it is easier. It is not that difficult as people say. So if you give your whole time, you are fully devoted, and you use smart study. So you stick to the main high yield resources, Pathoma, first aid, UWorld, and you will get through it. It's not that difficult. Any questions you want to ask?
Yeah, okay. So we have a question from Anmol Sagar. He says, "Sir, I've been going through DAMS videos and doing first aid after that. I'm yet to start a U World. What else would you recommend?" Okay, Anmol, I'd love if you could unmute yourself and switch your video on so that you could have a face-to-face talk with Keshav. Are you here?
So let me answer this question. I
And
don't think
also,
so.
it does matter what prof you're in. If you could mention that on the chat, and that would make his answer easier, I guess.
Hello, sir.
So,
This is Anmol. Hello.
hi, hi, yeah,
I think there's some lag on his part, I guess.
yeah, yeah. So, So let me answer this question because I really don't know how to answer this, because I haven't gone through DAM's videos. So I don't think so I would be the right person to ask about it regarding the usefulness of DAM's videos. But if if DAMS covers all the concepts of the subject, then it should be good. But I would still recommend you to go through first aid and you will thoroughly, because no matter what resource you are using, the first aid and you world is going to help you, and is the
Anmol sir,
only thing which will help you.
if you could also pitch in and give your insight.
Hello, sir, ma'am.
Hi.
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 I'm so sorry for the internet issue before. I'm Anmol Sagad, and I'm a student from PIMS Jalandhar.
Okay.
Right.
I just got
His voice is
with
breaking
my
again.
third
Voice is
year
cracking.
Okay, Anmol,
exam
your voice is cracking again. Can we just go through and answer your question if
yesterday,
that's okay?
and I first of all wanted to thank you for this extremely informative seminar to Anmol sir, Keshav sir, Onam ma'am. That was amazing. And hello.
Hello.
Yes, and Anmol sir, आप आंसर ही कर दीजिए.
Yeah. See, I don't know which prof he is in. I typed it in the chat box if he can
Yeah,
reply.
either way, I mean,
Anyhow, so I haven't. Okay. Okay. So yeah, finish with your second prof exams. Okay. So yeah. In regards to your question, there was a point I would like to come at. See, the thing is, step one will be going pass fail from next year, right? It was announced, I think, in 2020 that from 2022 it will be going pass fail. So traditionally, what we as international medical graduates wanting to pursue USMLE, we what the edge we had were good step scores, because that is something that we can actually heavily work on, because we can decide our own date for the exam, and we can take with realistically we can take a longer time as compared to the students in the United States to prepare for this exam. So we could get good scores, like with I think with, if you covered majority of the high yield resources well, and you went through and you understood the basic concepts, you could get a decent score with just pure hard work, and I think that was the edge we had. So considering it's going pass fail from next year, I would recommend that anybody who is serious about this, who wants to give the step one, should try to give it this year. I know there is only 9 months left, but I think that is all you need. So considering that you have, if you're serious about this and you have gone through DAM's videos, I haven't gone through DAM's videos, so I can't comment on that. But I think you should go through first aid and you should understand which areas are lacking to you and which areas you feel confident upon. And I think after doing first aid, you should go through the resources that you feel that you like. If you think you lack pharmacology concepts, you can go through Boards and Beyond or Kaplan pharmacology videos. If you think biochemistry is like something lagging to you, you can go through the Kaplan biochemistry videos. See, the thing is, I think there are some high yield topics for USMLE which all these resources cover, which might not be covered to that, which might not have gotten that much importance in DAMs, because DAMs, I think it's more of like to prepare for Indian PG, and there are some concepts, there are some diseases that are tested like highly in the USMLE. So I would advise going through first aid and seeing that where do you lack or where do you don't have a good understanding, and after that using the resources. And your best bang for your buck is always going to be questions. Questions are going to tell exactly where you stand and what do you know and what you don't know. Because see, the beautiful thing about UWorld is UWorld will tell you why the answer is correct. It will tell you why the other answers are incorrect. And in the end, it will give you an educational objective of each question. So it actually greatly summarizes, it condenses the information and presents to you in a very understandable way. So I think highest yield is UWorld. So you should focus
uh,
on that.
also, I'd just like to add one more thing here. I have done a DAMS pharmacology, and the fact that I've done pharmacology from Kaplan as well, they're two different worlds altogether. Way too different. What is high yield for pharmacology in the Indian PG is not high yield in USMLE. So uh, I can speak of pharmacology, but I also know that a few seniors of mine did use the DAMS notes for CVS as a high yield source to understand CVS in a better way. So you could sort of use it in the systemic part, but essentially, as Anmol sir had mentioned, there are four essential resources that you cannot just do without. That is something you need to do, and you can't do without those. So yeah, that is one point that I wanted to add. Um,
Dirty medicine has
Thank you
really
so
good
much,
videos
sir.
on CVS as well. So
right.
if you want to go through dirty medicine, you can go through that as well.
Okay, so if we've
Yeah,
missed
dirty
out,
medicine is a group.
if we missed out any questions, you could just type it again, or you could come up with more questions if you have any. UWorld sufficient. Okay, so Anmol has also asked another question, sir. If UWorld is sufficient or
Yeah,
another
I
QM
think
is needed.
Anmol is asking.
Yeah.
I think for step one, it is sufficient.
Yeah.
You can always do more questions, and questions are the single best way to, like, I think, increase your score, because they will test various concepts. But I think UWorld is more than enough. They keep constantly adding questions in UWorld. Like, I think 2 years ago it had around 2,600 questions. Now it has over 3,300 questions. They keep on adding questions, so I think it should be enough.
They also have new NBMEs released a week before as well.
Hmm.
So you can add UWorld along with the NBMEs.
Right, and also the fact that they keep increasing the the UWorld question bank every single year, adding the questions from the last year's step, and so the question bank keeps on increasing. I think right now it's what 3347 questions, I guess. So it just keeps on
3,500.
yeah, 3,500 questions. So it just keeps on increasing, and
So I think there are two important questions. How will pass fail affect international graduates, as you mentioned? Yeah, so I wanted to touch upon that. See, the thing is, once step one goes pass fail, you won't be reported a 3-digit score, and a high or good 3-digit score always looks more impressive on your CV. So you always see, as the program directors in US who want to select applicants for the residency programs, they want to have some objective data. Like in Indian PG, we have the rank lists. We don't have a rank list as such in applying for the residency spots over there. So the only objective score which will be left will be step 2 CK, and it is gonna increase its importance a lot. See, earlier step one used to be the most important exam. After it goes pass fail, they need to have at least some objective data that which candidate has had a better score on these standardized exams. So step two will have gained that much more importance. And from currently, I am preparing for my step two, and from what I have noticed right now, and from what I have gained from my seniors, is that step two is now testing more and more concepts of step one. So it is getting more and more concepts related to the basic core concepts of step one, that the basic pathology, the basic pharmacologies. So it's not that the step one is going pass fail, so you will just pass the exam with a half-hearted effort. You can do that, but that might come back to bite you in your step two prep, because it will be even more important.
right. Also, Ribhav, he's a first prof student, and he's asking what the optimal time to give each step of USMLE is. Optimal time. So yeah.
See, I think it would be best if you give step one this year, not considering in which prof you are, because it's best if you can get a good 3-digit score. But if not, I think certainly after it goes pass fail, I think the best time for sure, I think it's your third prof, because third prof exams are relatively easy, and Keshav did extremely well during his third prof. So it is not something that
Okay,
is
sir. So would you
unreachable.
recommend giving the exam at the end of third prof or during third prof?
Whenever your preparation is complete, you can take your own date.
You
That is the
will
whole
have
point.
to give it before this. So
Okay, sir.
yeah.
Sir, and also considering that I will be, and students of my prof would be applying for residency in 2024. Would my score even be considered by then if I get one?
I think I'm also not very sure about this, but I think when
No,
you
yes,
submit
they
your
have
scores,
clarified. No,
they have.
NBM has clarified. Yes, they have clarified
Okay.
that your scores will be considered even after 7 years. They're considered for 7 years, so they will be considered no matter
Okay,
what
sir.
your peers have step pass fail score. So they will be
Okay,
considered.
so they will be mentioned if we take a
Yes.
scored exam. Okay, sir.
I mean,
Thank you so much.
everything that you do on your step is there on a USMLE transcript, right? So once you are in the system, you are in the system, and whatever you've done there will be considered no matter what. So yeah, that's that. Uh, right. Um, okay. Do we do we have any questions pertaining to the step one
So,
and the preparation for step one?
okay, Onam, I would like to mention two things that I thought to be the most difficult for my prep.
Yes, sir, please.
Yeah. So I think many people what they overlook is time management for your for your actual test. See, each block is like in step one you have 7 blocks of questions, and each block is 40 questions. And once you submit your exam,
Have you lost Molzer again?
I think so.
short amount of time. So if you can please.
So your voice is cracking again. Uh, um,
Yeah, Onam.
सर आपकी आवाज क्रैक हो गई थी जो आपने लास्ट में पूरा सेगमेंट बोला तो if you could
Okay. Is it fine now?
yeah, it's better.
Yes.
Okay, so I would advise everybody to focus on the time management. I know that is something that comes way down your preparation, but still, you don't want to be missing easy questions on your exam because there is no negative marking for easy questions.
Keshav, meanwhile, I think you can answer Shruti's question. How many months before do we have to register with USMLE to give the step one?
Okay. So I gave my test on October 5th and I registered myself on uh, July 25th, I guess. So it takes only 10 days, but depends on your college. On your college, I don't know which college you are from. So if your college is registered to the system, wherein the college sends the confirmation of your being student automatically, then it would take only 10 days. But if it is not, then you'll have to send a letter signed by your director principal and then to the USMLE office. That would take another 10 to 15 days. So I would still recommend you to register 3 months in advance just to be safe.
Yeah.
Keshav, sir, I had a question for you. Sir, so did
Yes.
you start preparing in third prof or had you started in second prof?
So I started dedicatedly in the third prof only, but I had gone through half of the pathoma videos, systemic videos in the second prof, and some of the sketchy micro videos as well. But I would still
Okay,
say
so
very
in
much,
third prof, it
yeah,
took you 10 months to prepare. Is that correct? 9, 10 months.
yeah, yeah, 9 months, 9 to 10 months, yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Uh, right. I have questions regarding research here. Um, this seminar is based on the step one, and we'll be talking about step one essentially. So I'd really like you all to come up with questions pertaining to step one. We'll answer those questions regarding research as well, but first the step one questions so that people who, yeah, I mean, if you have any questions pertaining to step one, we'd like to take them first.
Hello, so I
Hi.
am Kshitij Manchanda.
Hi.
I am currently in second year, and it's been like 3 months since my college started, and I am planning to prepare it along with my college studies. I have talked to some seniors, but no one did it like with second year studies. Like I'll be reading everything for the first time, and not like after I'll complete the college stuff and then start once again. I'm planning to start from the first, like from initially itself. So it's been like 3 months, and I'm finding it a little tough. So you have any advice regarding how to start go through like that?
Don't forget to read your textbooks. I mean,
Yeah.
I think what people do is they go for the resources, but don't forget Robbins and other textbooks which are really high. And then
Yeah.
you can go through Golian, as some of my juniors have gone through Golian while in second prof. So I don't know how much it will that be useful for your second prof exams per se, but it will be definitely useful for you because you will have a go through of the medicine part related to the pathology. So, and you can go through Captain Pharmacology videos as well. They will be helpful for clearing your concepts and will be helpful for your exams as well. So, yeah.
Uh, Also, I'd just like to pitch in here and say that second prof in
Yeah, I
itself
think
is a big
in,
is a big change from the first prof, because in the first prof you're just studying, you're revising what you did in to an extent in your 11th and 12th grade. Second prof is a big change in itself, right? So 3 months is a very less time to adjust to it. But given that you are doing these resources alongside your standard textbooks and alongside your second prof studies, will give you an edge over other people. And even though it may seem tough right now, pharmacology is really tough when you start with it, but it soon gets into your system and it becomes your language after a point of time. So I
On
think
top,
the answer to your question is only give it time and let it sink in and follow the standard textbooks, keep doing what you're doing, and after significant amount of repetition you will be there.
actually, I found pharmacology the easiest because it was like the most conceptual, except the name, everything you can think of. So it was not the main problem. Was that most of the people I talked to, they told me that you should first complete whatever is there from the textbooks and like one video source, and then start everything again after you complete your second year in like 2 3 months. But till now, like it's been 3 months, and I do everything from everywhere. Like I read the book, couple of videos, a couple of books, and I do questions just for fun, like nothing in particular, like 10, 15 questions per topic. So, like, is that very unrealistic to ask myself to do everything
I think
once? It is
that's
way
a rather interesting way to study, but Anmol sir can, I think, offer more advice on this.
I think, first of all, thank you for your question. I think you should minimize the resources that you're using. I think in your second year is the time that you are building your core concepts, you are getting an understanding of the topic. So if you use too many resources, you can sometimes you can get lost in these resources. I think you should learn one resource and understand it thoroughly. That is, I think, a more beneficial way. Because see, yes, there are some topics that are more beneficial in there are more high yield in USMLE compared to Indian PG, but the basic concepts they stay the same. Either it's Indian PG or it's USMLE. So find just find a resource that works for you. Like, let's consider patho. See, patho, you have to do pathoma for USMLE, but also side by side, if you can read Robbins for your if you have the time, that is, if you have the time and you're willing to devote the time, Robbins is a great resource for your second prof exams, second that you will eventually be giving. So
the
I
last
think
1500
sorry.
pages. The largest one, 1500, 1450 pages. Largest
Yeah,
Robbins.
yeah, yeah. You don't need to go through the entire Robbins. I certainly did not. You just need to focus on the topics that you think are most important. See, because the thing is, like in Indian scenario, you just need to pass your prof exams, right? Like
Yeah, that is
if you don't want to get very high scores, and I think that is a whole other topic to how to get high scores. I think if you are really serious about this, you should focus on your USMLE prep, and that will come across in your second prof exams as well. The basic concepts won't change, and they'll help you passing those exams as well. Now if you really want a good score in your second prof, then you'll obviously have to dedicate some dedicated preparation to that, but I don't think that should be your goal. I think your goal should be to understand the concepts from wherever you learn them from.
that is what I am like. Just understand everything,
So
whatever you need, how much ever time you require.
yeah, yeah, but simultaneously try to limit your resources, because that way you won't be very efficient. You'll just keep studying one subject and you'll just dive deep into so many resources and just you'll just get lost. So it is better to use fewer resources if you are comfortable, but use them well. That is what I'll say.
Also,
And
like you could go with something like, if you've decided that this is what you're going to study for pathology, say, just do pathoma followed by Robbins or HM, what Hirschman, whatever you study at college. It's like that. It'll give you an introductory sort of a video, and then you could sort of go ahead and study Robbins as well. So just stick to one resource per subject. Or yeah, I mean, as Anmol sir said, I think you have another question. Anmol has
Thank you.
asked, is getting a low score on step one detrimental, considering the exam is going to be pass fail pretty soon? My only concern with giving a second exam is that a low score would be harmful for me. Would anyone, one of you, like to take that
Yes,
question?
yes. See, I feel that if you get a below average score, then that is detrimental. It is better off just passing the exam. So I think anybody who is planning to take the step one in this year, I think you need to assess your performance midway to your preparation. If you are confident that you are understanding, or even if you're semi-confident and you think that you can do well, then you should go ahead definitely with the preparation. But you actually feel that you don't have the time, or you don't have the necessary commitment currently, so it is better to postpone it. If you really if you feel like you won't be able to study well, then I think it's better to postpone it for the next year and pass the exam and not get a score. It is better to not get a score than a bad score, I would say. Definitely.
thank you so much, sir. That was a really concerning doubt for me, and I have been having that for a long time.
Also, I think giving the step when you feel you're ready is very important. USMLE is as much as an exam of endurance and your mental psyche as it is a test of your knowledge. And if you feel like you're not ready, even if you've gone through with the resources, just don't feel that there's any pressure on you that you have to give it. I did complete most of the resources that were there to complete, and I just felt like I was not ready, and it did not give my step in my third prof. So it's good to know yourself and to know what you're comfortable with at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
you need to be honest with yourself. You can't just follow the crowd. That is what I'm saying. You need to figure out what resources work for you, and you need to figure out your optimal way of studying, whether it's doing subjects first or doing questions first. It is totally personalized, the approach.
True.
So
And the
You
only
yeah.
can give
way,
a
Sir,
test
what
to assess your
what amount of
performance.
time would you recommend per day to demarcate for dedicated USMLE studying?
as much as it takes.
I know that kind of varies for everybody, but ballpark or minimum time.
See, I'll tell you what I did. Like during my dedicated prep, I think I used to study maximum 8 to 10 hours. I don't think I can study more than 10 hours a day. And I don't think it's like efficient to study more than 10 hours. But during my like when I was doing my duties as well as studying, I think I only did like 4 to 5 max per day. I
Six
don't
hours
think you need
average for me as well.
I don't think you need to study like 12 to 13 hours each day. That is like not true totally.
Thank you, sir.
Because see,
Sure.
the thing is, what USMLE wants you to do is, it wants you to answer questions or make very well educated guesses based on your basic concepts. See, during the exam, personally, I saw many questions that I was seeing for the first time, and I had completed the entire U World question bank. Still, I saw many questions that I saw for the first time, and I had to use my knowledge of my basic concepts and try to apply it to those questions and come up with the answer. And that is what USMLE wants you to do, because they know everybody can, given enough time, memorize everything there is to know, right? They know that memory is not the problem for majority of the people. So they want you to understand the concepts, and they want you to come up with answers to questions that you haven't seen before. Always keep that in mind.
Sir, would you recommend any particular test center for North Indian students?
I think there is only one in North India, Gurgaon.
Right. Ribha has asked a question. If it is possible to study for both NEET PG and USMLE, or should we focus only on one or the other? Because I'm not yet sure which I want to go for.
I
Go
think
for
it
the
is
concepts.
definitely possible.
Uh,
But I
Go
think
for
you
the
should focus on
concepts.
one.
I mean,
It's
I
good.
think as the trend has been in our college also, people who studied and even given their steps, they've done exceptionally well on their PGs later on when they've given it after their internship. We had Divya ma'am who had a score of 250 on the step that she gave, I think in her third prof, and
Third prof.
she ended up getting a 52 on a 50 All India rank 52 in PGI. So I think it just clears your concepts in a way that you can approach the data in a better way, and then you have an edge over the others because you have a mental acumen for clinical questions later when you're giving. And given the fact that it is all, even Indian PG is becoming more and more clinical by the day, I think it is more sensible to prepare for the step singularly. And if you want to take a different path, it'll only make your life easier later on, is what I truly believe.
Uh, so one of the barriers I think I face is that not a lot of the students in my college are preparing for the exam. It feels pretty lonely because I am the only person I know of that is even considering giving the exam. So I always kind of look for guidance, but I can't find it. Everybody's, geared towards NEET PG, so it feels pretty lonely.
Right. See, I also prepared for my step. Like, I don't think there was somebody else who was preparing with me. I also prepared for it on my own. See, you need to remember why you're doing this whenever you feel low, right? There are all obviously there will be ups and downs during your entire preparation. You won't have a constant high, you won't have a constant low. So whenever you have doubts, you need to remember why you started this and look at the bigger picture.
Thank you, sir. That's a really noble way of looking at it.
We have a question from Simrat. If first and second prof subjects carry equal weightage, so we have what is called a clinical vignette as questions in USMLE. So it's not that you'll be asked a question ki what is the nerve supply, or what is the blood supply of this organ, yes kuch. It'll never be a straightforward question. So it'll take you through your concepts, and then it'll ask you one single thing, which could be anything. So it's very arbitrary as such. It is. So if you want to elaborate on that, any of you?
Like, I'll give an example. Like, they won't ask you, like, likely, like Onam said, they won't ask you what is the name of this, what is it called. They'll start a scenario that a patient comes, and for example, they'll describe a patient with blunt abdominal trauma, and they'll lead you towards thinking that the spleen has ruptured. And then they'll ask you which organ does that is affected, where from which embryological like layers does it come from. So they won't ask you from where the spleen is developed. They'll just give a vignette to take you into thinking that, yeah, this is what the patient has suffered. So the concepts are not like they'll ask you one subject. They'll intermix all different disciplines. If you can go into the USMLE official website, and they have listed the percentages of various subjects and the various systems, like the cardiovascular system, the gastrointestinal system, the psychiatry. They have listed various percentages of questions that you can expect to find. So, and yeah, you can check that out on the USMLE website.
Right. Do we have any other questions pertaining the step and the preparation and the resources of the step? So doing the main 4 resources plus one. Yes, it should suffice. Anything else? So, yeah. Okay. We'll be addressing the research question as well at the end. If there's anything other than that regarding the step, we'd like to take that first. Okay, I think all of us, like Anmol sir and Keshav, you could just go in and answer that question. If research is important for our CV, if not, what is important for our CV?
See, definitely if you have a publication, like if something that you did as research and you got it published in a reputed journal, that is definitely a very big plus point on your CV. But doing research just for the sake of doing research, I don't think it is that useful. Do in like in our home country, I would say, like if you are really interested in that, or you really just want to build your CV, if you can find a good mentor, and if you can get your research published, that is what I want to come at. If you can get your research published, that definitely counts. But non-published research, like you just pursued something and you left it midway, that also happens many times. I don't think that holds a lot of value. So I think in your first, second, or third prof, if in especially in your first and second prof, I think you should focus more upon like getting your concepts correct and studying well for your exams and your subjects, rather than your research in first or second prof. After that, you can definitely follow these avenues as well.
Sir,
Keshav,
have you personally completed any clinical
I want
rotations
to
as of yet?
Yes.
give us a second to address this question first. Keshav, do you have any input here?
I don't know. I haven't researched myself, so I don't think so. The right person to answer this question. But yes, definitely, if you could get a, just like Sir said, if you could get a published research, then it definitely helpful. Something is better than nothing. So go for your test scores, get the test scores, and if you could find time amongst the studies for your research, then do it.
Right. Anmol,
Yeah,
can we have
that's
your
it.
question?
Sir, have you personally done any clinical rotations as of yet, or is it just step one score for now?
No, I haven't done any clinical rotations because I think COVID hit us very unexpectedly, and majority of the places were closed. So I'm in the midst of finding a rotation, but I haven't completed any as of yet.
Thank you, sir.
Which NBMEs are more useful? I think I did only one NBME 18, and that was quite predictive of how the exam is going to look like, and it gave me a quite like accurate score. I think within 1 or 2 points of my real score. But some NBMEs have a very steep curve. Like I only did one NBME, so I'm not aware of the others. But the thing is not to get very disheartened by your NBME scores. That is the main point.
But you get to know a lot of concepts on NBMEs. Like the newer
Right.
NBMEs, 20 to 25th, they have a lot of concepts, and they have also published new NBMEs. And the data is coming that 29th NBME is little predictive as well. Yeah. It's $80 per one test, or you can find the PDF version from Telegram or Reddit. It will do the same work.
Right. Do we have any other questions?
Sir, could you please repeat the NBME one? The voice was kind of unstable at that time.
Okay, so you can either buy each NBME from their official website. It's $80 per single test, or you can download NBME's PDF from Telegram or Reddit.
Thank you so much, sir.
Right.
You're welcome.
I think people have just asked a lot more questions about research, if you're planning to do it and how can one pursue it. My personal take on it is that research is something which you can enjoy, and it helps you build a clinical acumen and see medicine in a perspective, in a whole new perspective, and in a whole new way. It sort of it inspires me to study more, and that is why I do it. Definitely, there is a conception, and it is a valid conception, the fact that research does count on your CV. It does count on your CV, and not only that, it gives you a gateway into getting a postdoctoral job after your college in the US. You sort of present that you have some amount of research here, and that sort of counts on your CV to get a postdoctoral research job that you do, the research that you will do after college, to sort of increase your chances of getting a good residency match. So that is just one more thing that I'd like to add. And there's a lot of time in your third prof, which I feel you could either use for giving your step, or you could use for doing research. So that is the choice that you have to make. In our time, giving the step was a better option because we had a three-digit scoring system. But now that no longer but now that that's no longer there, and it is going to be pass fail anyway, I think it's going to be very arbitrary, and it's totally going to be a personal choice, and there can't be a one single take on it. So Randy Neal videos on YouTube are also okay, right. Mm, are there any questions? If there are any questions that we've not addressed before this, you could just ask them again. Um, Otherwise, we'll just call it a night. Are there any other questions? Okay, I think there are no more questions. I just like to end it on a note that the only way to do it is through it. So the more you get involved in studying for the step, the more you come to know about it. All of us have started off as complete novices, and we were completely naive. We did not know what to follow, what to pursue, and we have sort of gotten to know over time only. This is the knowledge that we've accumulated over 3 years, and you have a long way to go. So yes,
Somebody is asking the question, what would be a good score to get consistently in practice tests on average? See, that depends on which specialty would you like to pursue eventually. You can look at there is official data that what was the average step one score of the non-US IMGs who matched into a particular specialty. So let's say if you want something like neurosurgery, a decent step score would be at least a 250. If you want something like psychiatry, a decent step score would be something like a 220 to 30 is also good enough. So that totally depends on what you are looking for.
but then again, you have to compare that data to a step to
Hmm.
CK now, because अब तो
Right.
applicable नहीं होगा. So yes, um, so I'll
Sir, I
just
would
like.
like to thank you on such a informative webinar. We don't have enough of these. And thank you for so much guidance. This was really, really productive. Onam ma'am, Avi sir, thank you so much.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Okay, I almost
Thank you.
forgot. We have to take a picture. So I'd just like you all to switch your cameras on so we can take a picture.